Yeah,
strapped for
sure.
time. and
Yeah, I'm
all
pretty
of
sure
this
Matt
meeting,
Bates will
so
tell you what you
yeah.
want.
I have no,
Okay,
no
well-
negative comments there, so,
Go ahead and start.
thank you.
We'll call the meeting to order. 2:02. We have currently members Nancy Olson, Ron DePonte, John Grega, Phil Measy, Nancy Wall, Joseph Schofield. Oh,
There he is.
and Robert Geppert is among us as well. So we have a full,
I got him a minute early.
we have a full
You guys are
house.
exactly on time, 2 o'clock.
That works.
No, it's not.
You want to do it again? So
Yeah,
you're
hello,
recording?
oh, okay. So I recorded the roll call again. We have John Grega, Ron Ponte, Nancy Hall, Nancy Olson, Chris Schofield, Phil Measy, and Bob Geppert, all present. Let's go quickly to the approval of the March minutes. Any changes? Once again, as I think I indicated in the email I sent through Mike, that, I did some considerable editorial changes on them, to make them a little bit more summary and a little bit more organized than I received from the minute taker. So any changes? If not, I will
Move to accept minutes?
Second.
Moved by Ron and seconded by Nancy Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as currently written. We were gonna have a sunshine law review, but I got a note from Tony yesterday that he was kind of under the weather, so he's not gonna make the meeting. So we'll have to put that off. I told him to sometime probably in the fall when we have a full, because John, you'll be going after this meeting, is that right? So I think, it makes sense to have a full group here when we do that.
Was under the weather a pun? Sunshine law?
Thank you.
If he
You're
has to-
quicker than I am at this point.
Funnier than
If
you
he would
thought.
like to come prior to me being back, he's allowed.
John, we wouldn't want you to miss it.
Been through a few.
I tell you what, I'm gonna shuffle the thing a little bit so that Matt doesn't have to spend the whole afternoon with us. So, do you have anything to report, Matt?
Sure.
And Matt Travis from...
Good afternoon, Matt Travis with Securitas. Some of you were with us this morning at President's Council, and I'm going to hand out the same handout I did this morning of the transactions. You got one from this morning. So in talking with Scott last month, he suggested a format change. So the data that I had been giving you previously was just guest and visitor vendor interactions. So just vehicles and passes that our guards had engaged with, whether issuing a pass or scanning a pass. So now we added an extra column or two on here so that you can also see the transaction activity that has done a barcode read. So that could be the visitor lane or it's definitely the resident lane, but it could also be a resident going through the visitor lane and catching a barcode read there. Also, but you have the barcode reads in one column, you have the guest and vendor ones that we've interacted with Securitas, and then you have your total volume of entries that have come in for touch points at the lane. So you can see it's pretty significant volume. One of the things we talked about last month was of like why we see some times where where cars are backed up out towards the traffic light, and you can see one of the indicators here is we just have significantly higher volume in March, and I really think that as we get out towards August and September and things like that, we're going to see numbers dropping down into the 40s, in the 40,000 ranges. So I think these numbers just represent high volumes, and it would be good information for us to have month by month for me to give to you guys so that you can see actual transaction numbers as it then impacts service levels at the gatehouse.
I have a question. I appreciate you presenting this morning. I was looking at the first line, guest lane, passes issued and scanned. is there a difference between issued and scanned? And I got to thinking about that, and I said, it'd be nice to know how many passes are computer generated versus phone generated out of, versus how many actually people pull up and ask to get a pass. And that might be too much information,
Yeah.
but it seemed to me like that would be an interesting number to at least look at once or twice.
Yeah, so I'd have to dig into the dwelling live reports to see how granular I can get the detail out of them. There's, in dwelling live, from what I see, there's 20, 30 reports that I can run.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep it's gonna let me dive on types
Yeah,
of passes and things like that.
I just was thinking, the comment was made this morning about trying to promote people using computer passes. It'd be nice to kind of have an idea, how many people really are using that function? Because the comment was made, we're all computer literate today. I don't quite agree with that.
Oh, no.
No.
I can tell you right now.
Well, I can't get my emails to come in on my computer. They're on my phone and iPad, but I don't know where they are on the computer. But I thought it might be interesting to just see what the usage really is. I mean, it's a great benefit, that computer, and I use it all the time, but we
Well,
made it easier.
I don't know that the computer, what you're referencing is gonna actually show up on the data. Because
Okay.
some of what you're referencing is, and this will go into another point for me to update you on. But there's three main points of the way you can register a guest, or any resident can register a guest. You can call the gatehouse or call the automated line, so you can do it by a phone. You can use the app on your mobile device, which could be an iPad or your phone, or you can go to the website through your laptop or through your phone or whatever. So those are three ways to enter a guest, but it's all gonna create the same pass at the gatehouse.
Yeah, right.
Right? So what the gate officer is doing is looking in dwelling live to say, is this person that's pulling up here approved or not approved? And you, as the resident, have three different ways to get somebody approved. And so really the idea of having the website, having the app, and having the automated line is really to meet the residents where they're at in their own technology comfort zone. So like you said, it was referenced this morning that everybody's computer literate, but the idea of this software is having three different touch points so that people that aren't tech savvy, hey, you just dial a number and the audio file goes in. People that are more tech savvy, like, hey, I got the mobile, and people that are just comfortable with using their computer, they can go to the website. But either way, when the guard sees it, it's gonna come up pretty similar to them on their screen that this person's either approved or not approved. Your question related here about passes issued or scanned. So if a person comes to the gate, if you have a guest coming over for dinner tonight, and they come to the gate, they're gonna get issued a 1-day pass. Somebody else might come to the gate and get issued a 2-week pass if it's a vendor working on your roof. So each day when they come through, they're gonna present their pass, still being a transaction at the gate, and our officer is gonna scan it with the scanner. So it's still a transaction at the gate where our officer engages.
But hopefully not as much time
Yes.
required by the officer.
Right, right. So that's why it's listed there as an issued pass and a scanned pass, because
Yeah.
it's a transaction that our officers
That's
are
fine, it's
touching.
just a curiosity thing I was
Yeah.
thinking of.
Yeah, I can look at the reports
The
also.
phone,
and
the phone, when you call into the phone number to Dwelling Live to register a guest, you have to be at the location of, let's say, the line that you registered, correct?
see. When it's working correctly, which we know that it's not right now, and I'll address that as point number 2. But when it's working correctly, whatever phone numbers you have on your profile in Dwelling Live is a number that you can dial from.
Okay,
So-
so give me two,
If you list in your profile a home number, I think Dwelling Live allows each person to list 3 numbers.
okay.
So you could have a profile, your spouse could have a profile, you could have up to 6 numbers, right? So you could list, but you could list 1 for you and a home line, and then 2 cell numbers, 1 for you, 1 for your spouse, right? And if you're calling from any of those 3 numbers, it's going to recognize it and assign the guest to your profile.
And the point would be if somebody like, say, John, who's a seasonal resident, wants to put his northern number on there,
Sure.
we would recognize that too.
Yep,
Right.
yep. Yep, you can put 3 numbers in for each profile.
Or just get your cell number on that, it's been good anywhere.
you have a cell.
Yeah. All right, so the second thing I want to review with you guys was kind of brought up as we're talking about that automated line. The automated line is struggling right now. It's not working. This morning, I shared a little bit about the relationship where Securitas comes in. I just want to make sure that that's clear because a lot of, I think the general resident would misunderstand or just not have thought it out. Securitas is a guarding company, and we have a lot of technology solutions. Some of that is remote guarding, some of that is partnership, right? So remote guarding is something, if we weren't present and you wanted to use cameras, you could interact with a live Securitas guard remotely in our office in Charlotte, where we have a big call center and we can do remote kind of services through technologies. Some of the technologies that we use here are partnership based. So we have a Vigilant for camera services, and that's a partner company that we work with. We get discounted pricing. And if there's an issue with that camera or anything, our guards can call our IT help desk and they can route it off to schedule service and things like that. Same thing holds true with the visitor management software. There's a company called Front Steps that has multiple different softwares. We use the software Dwelling Live. Securitas relationship is a partner relationship with that vendor. So that allows us to get bundled pricing or bulk pricing, so that when Pelican Preserve pays the licensing fees and things like that, you're paying a significantly lower fee because we're purchasing it through Securitas with our buying power, which we have communities across the nation as opposed to you guys as a standalone community. And then from the IT side, we have an integrated IT service desk, which means the guards on site, if something goes wrong, like the automated phone line right now, our guards don't have to search and say, okay, what company do I call? How do I reach out to Dwelling Live? They just call the help desk, which is the Securitas help desk. Our IT help desk then routes the Dwelling Live topics to Dwelling Live for them to handle, right? And so that's just how we work as a partner vendor. With that, right now, Dwelling Live, the mother company, Front Steps, is having a software issue that is impacting their automated voicemails. It's not isolated to Pelican Preserve. They, on the phone call yesterday, termed it a global problem with their software, and their DevOps team is actively working. It's their #1 priority to solve this issue with their software. So they were aiming for a 48-hour turnaround problem. Chris and I have discussed, we want to give a little bumper room on that so that we don't have issues over the weekend. So we're saying, hey, end of day Monday, something like that is when we hope to see it resolved. But I want you guys to feel comfortable as PPAC that Securitas's role in this is yesterday I was on a call where Director of Technology for Securitas was on with the counterpart from Dwelling Live saying we need updates, we need to know what's going on, to the point when they did roll call and they're seeing who's all on the line. It's like, yeah, Matt in Fort Myers. It's like, Matt, what are you doing here? And the reason I had dialed in is just like, I have an important client that's facing issues right now, so I want to hear the updates also. But it's not my level that's pushing on Dwelling Live, the software company, to come up with answers. It's much higher in Securitas because it recognized the importance of how this impacts our ability to deliver service for you guys and how it impacts the communities. So I want you guys to know that we know about the issue, and Securitas is doing everything we can to push the software company to get it resolved, and they're committed that it's their #1 priority to resolve.
Matt, you mentioned this morning that if someone calls the automated line right now, their call just kind of disappears. Does the person calling think that they've delivered the message?
From my understanding, if you go to the line right now,
You're right.
everything sounds as if it's gone the way it's supposed to go.
But the fact of the matter is it didn't get
The
through.
data is not making
there.
it.
So the guards then end up calling the person.
Yeah,
I think I've
Yep.
let my visitor come through, my visitor comes in, they don't know, they have to call me
Yeah.
to confirm.
Yeah. So Chris has put out a communication to the community. A good idea was made at the President's Council this morning to change the voicemail at the gate. So that has been done earlier today. So the voicemail at the gate is one that's more welcoming and receiving of, hey, leave us your contact information for your guest on this line because we know the other one isn't working at the moment. and hopefully it'll be resolved as quickly as possible. Other thing I wanted to bring up was about the patrol, and about, we desire to always seek to see how we can improve our processes to better serve the community. In the past, the way to reach the patrol officer was to call the main line, and then the main line, whether you hit a voicemail or you get a live person, has to reach out to patrol. Our patrol team uses a Samsung S9 phone as their mobile device for doing incident reports, for doing their checkpoints, for doing all of those things. And that phone is how they get reached by the gatehouse. One of the things that the site supervisor has come up with that we all agree is a good idea, it has some pros and cons, but we think it's a good idea, is to publish that phone number to the community, so that instead of the community having the extra step of going through the gatehouse to get to the patrol officer, if there's a need for a patrol officer, the community can dial direct to the patrol officer. So we've been working with our team to train them up to be ready to be able to receive phone calls, to handle it correctly from a professional side. Also for me, I have to look at it from the safety side, calling guys when they're driving, and then probably asking them to retain certain information as far as addresses and things like that. How do they get that written down while they're driving, and things, how are we handling it from a safety protocol? But we are planning on going live with that on Monday. But wanted to talk with you guys about it and see if there's any thoughts that you guys had around the topic.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Anybody?
Try it, as long as it's not abused.
Yeah.
I have one comment. Would it be worthwhile just letting people know what the patrol officer's responsibilities or what they can respond to? Because I've had some folks complain about parties going past 10 o'clock, and they think they should call the patrol or call the guard. And the response I got back was the guard really doesn't have responsibility for that. It's a 911 call to the police department to come into Pelican and tell a party they're too loud.
Yeah, Chris is going to put out the communication on Monday. Is it Monday?
Yeah, so the plan is to send a communication to the community Monday to inform of, what that phone number is and that this is live. As far as if there is a request for maybe some specific examples as to, when to use that, I would ask that maybe we get with Chris and yourself and maybe see, based on the abbreviated post orders we've already put together, maybe we can have some specific reference for residents so that they know what would be in the power of that patrol officer.
One of the most common calls is speeders. There's not a whole lot our officers can do about that, but I think part of the training that we're doing with the officers is to know how to respond to the residents, to say, this is something I'll be right there for, or this is something we need to call, the sheriff's department.
So I think the call should go to the HOA president, my own personal opinion.
For speeders?
No, no,
Told
I'm
me
talking
to
about
call
the
you-
party.
Somebody told me to call you for speeding because you.
No, noise, I'm talking about the noise issue. Somebody having a party,
Oh, really? Call the HOA? That'd be a good thing.
I
to
think
do.
that would be a more appropriate place to call.
I don't want a phone call at 11 o'clock at night telling me somebody's having a party.
Neither do I.
I
No
might.
dedication, you'll fix it.
No dedication. I can't imagine anybody in Pelican's partying at 10, but I could be wrong.
Oh, I hear parties going on coming across the pond from another neighborhood too.
That's right.
So who would I call?
The other neighborhood.
I would actually recommend that if we have issues as far as noise complaints, I think the most effective direction we could have is that be directed to the City of Fort Myers non-emergency police number. Because again, this is something that law enforcement would be responsible to address. Our presidents, Securitas, management, we are not in a position where we have any authority to address these concerns.
10 o'clock at night, there's nobody gonna be able to do anything about it.
So my
But in your
recommendation.
email on Monday, you should put things like that.
No,
in there.
that is fair, and that was exactly what we would do.
Do you have any examples of what they can address?
Yeah, we can probably look back at the post orders that we did, because those post orders kind of spell out some of that content, but certainly I can provide Chris with examples of some of our most common stuff that we deal with.
And you may want to put in there, do not call for this.
Well, I was gonna say, like
Yeah.
noise,
Put
call
that
this
in,
number
yeah,
instead.
do not call for noise.
Yeah.
If there's other ones that you do not want them to be
Yeah,
involved
and some
with,
of it
say
is,
that.
it's a tough thing, and it's a tough thing to communicate, because it's not necessarily that it's completely ineffective to call, because it's good if there's a noise concern, or if there's a speeding concern, to within a few minutes have the patrol car going around that element of the community. The question then becomes, what can we actually do about it? And that's a different story. And so the resident education piece is, hey, call us. There's noise in a part of the community, call us. We can have a greater presence in that community.
Would you ever knock on that door and just say, we're asking,
Yeah,
there
we-
has been a complaint?
See, I think, I agree, that would be a really polite way to do it. My response to one of my neighbors was, I think, I talked to my neighbor about it, but I said, if somebody had just gone up and said, hey, you know, it's 10 o'clock, you need to tone it down now, that's the rules of the road. I think that would be good. I told them I didn't think they should go over personally and do it, because.
They're the ones that complain.
Huh?
They're the ones that are complaining, why wouldn't they?
Well, I think they made a phone call, nobody heard the phone ring, but.
I mean, if
don't
it's
know.
bothering you, go knock on the door and say, hey.
Yeah.
That's true, they could do that.
I think there's a lot of liability and a
This
lot
is
of
common
other stuff
sense.
that we're talking about, and that just concerns me with
Yep.
changing up everything. And the gate guys know, when a call comes in, and generally, if it's at night, it's not gonna be a busy traffic time.
And really, we're not really talking about changing anything here other than taking out the middleman. Right now, the process is the resident would pick up the phone and dial one number to hit the gatehouse and not deal with the patrol officer direct. And the only change now is to skip that part of the process to be able to speed our response times, so that the same person that would ask the same question of the officer today, next Monday, they would be talking to the guy driving the car instead of the gatehouse. So it really isn't gonna impact, I think, our response much, other than the fact that we should be able to be more rapid in our timeliness.
Well, I think the point being made here is that we need a reminder of
Yeah.
the response, because the truth of the matter is, most people have not read the post
Sure.
orders or even
Yeah.
our summary of the post
Yeah.
orders. So just a reminder of what, what can and can't
Yeah.
be done would probably be
Yeah.
worthwhile.
I agree.
Yeah, I talked to Stacy, or sent Stacy and Terry a note to put the Securitas and the dwelling live number in that front development summary they have.
Mhm.
They're gonna do that next month.
Mm-hmm.
Very good idea, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, every time I go, I pull that out. and
In the
it's-
monthly newsletter.
And then, yeah, in the monthly
Yeah,
newsletter.
that's good, that's good. Any other questions of Matt? Matt, thank you very much.
Yeah. Before I run, I'm gonna ask Bob one question.
Sure.
If I leave, I won't be around for the ponds discussion. If there is one, is there anything that you needed to ask me around the cement washouts or the truck washouts?
There may be, but I gotta bring that up later on.
Okay. You guys reach out to me as needed on that.
Will do.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, so now we will fall backwards to the budget.
The budget, so, don't get too excited when you see right now it looks like less than this year, because it's not that big. This is very preliminary. Everything that has a contract, I just used what we had last year, but that's going to increase. Scott's getting me a list of all the contracts and the dollar amounts of them, because we have some contracts we're paying now that weren't in our budget last year. Some of those up near Casella and Prado, those aren't included here yet. Plus, any increases in those particular contracts, whether they're gonna go up. So I'm still waiting to get that from Scott. So all the contracts we had last year, I just used those numbers. So look at the first one, entry feature utilities, we're way over budget for that this year, if I have all the invoices for it. We budgeted 19,000 and we're only at 6,000 so far this year. So for anything like utilities, I did the actual to date this year plus 3%. So I multiplied it by 2 because we're at the 6-month mark, and gave us a 3% increase because most likely they're gonna go up a little bit, and that's what we traditionally use.
I'm sorry, Nancy, so you say you took the March number and then added five, doubled it and added
Doubled
five,
it to
and
make it
then-
an annual,
and
and
then
then
added
3%
3%.
for inflation or increases that
Okay.
just happened.
Mhm.
Okay, the landscape contract is, we already talked about contracts. Annuals, I did actual +3 from last year, because we don't have a contract for annuals, right? That's just a service. So we're a little over budget on that this year, so that's gonna go up a little bit for this current year. Tree trimming, we haven't done yet, so we've got 0 expenses in here, so I used last year's number. And I'll have to wait to hear from Scott if that's gonna go up at all. And he said some of these numbers are gonna go up because we're covering more area now. So a lot of these things that I'm using last year's number, when Scott gets back and gets me the numbers, they are gonna go up. So, pine straw, if you look at pine straw, you see there's no expenses in, account 706557 this year. And if you go down to our mulch and pine straw in, 706502, we're well over budget. So that's one of the questions I have to Scott. I'm not sure that maybe some of that got charged to the wrong account. And if it did, we're gonna have to get that moved up.
You had mentioned that last
Yeah.
time.
Yes, I gave Scott a list of questions that I had as to whether numbers were right or if they were in the wrong account. So he's working on them, and as soon as he gets back to me on that, I'll make all those corrections. Irrigation repairs, looks like right now it could go down a little bit. And I just took a guess at that one because we only had $125 on them for the shared expenses, and that seems really low. So I can't imagine that it's gonna stay that low. So I just took it down from 6,900 to 5,000 right now.
And Nancy, that's another one where the, down below, the number is well over budget.
Is over budget, yeah.
So could that be a misassignment of
It could
expenses
be,
too?
so Scott and I are looking at all those numbers to see if things have to be shifted.
Okay.
Let's see where we're at. Entry features, repairs and maintenance. We're below budget this year on that, so I did actual there plus the 3%. Plant replacements, we really haven't done any yet up there, so I left them the same. And I left sod replacements and tree as the same as last year because I can't imagine 868 is gonna do it for the year. Street lighting maintenance, we had nothing, so it's another one I just took a guess at, I took it down to 5,000 for the year. Utility card is a contract.
Should the streetlights be going down? Is this part of the LED thing or totally separate?
We did put LED streetlights out there.
'Cause I would hope that would
Yeah.
give us a much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, all of the CDD streetlights have been converted to LEDs.
And especially with those big ones, it wasn't just the street light, it was expensive, the bucket truck to replace them. So that was anticipated to be part of the savings, and
Let me see it.
looks like it's happening as we planned.
Mhm.
I have to say this account 706566, this is one Scott told me last week. It's gonna be 21,000, and he didn't tell me what account it is, and I don't have that account. So I'll have to check with Scott and see what that is.
Heat pack Christmas party.
Okay, 21 grand, we're ready. And pressure
Only till
cleaning.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah. Pressure cleaning, that's another one where I'm not sure expenses are getting to the right account there, because we have nothing down below and we've got a lot up above. So
Mhm.
that's another one that I've asked Scott to look at and see if we've got some of them in the wrong account. So, going down to our resident expenses, the first one is the landscaping contract, and that's the one where I expect the number to go up, because that's where Casella's going to be, Prado's going to be, anything new we have there. And the mulch and pine straw we talked about. Tree trimming, I used the same as last year because we're just really starting to trim trees now. Is that right, Chris? They haven't done much of the tree trimming yet?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I left that until I hear different from Scott, the same as last year. Annuals, I did actual plus 3% since it's not a contract. Feature fountain repairs and maintenance, they've slightly gone up a little bit from what they were last year. Oh, no, that's one, that's one, anywhere it says per Scott, those are the ones that he gave me a specific number that he's anticipating this year. So he's expecting some repairs on the feature fountain. Utilities, actual so far plus 3%. Gateway irrigation, that's something we didn't budget for at all. So far, we're just a little over 3,000 for the year, so that's the irrigation we pay for the common areas back in the gateway area.
Oh, so that's, yeah, that's separate.
Yeah, so that's something that will be new to our budget this year.
Mhm.
Irrigation electric, that looks like we over budgeted for that this year too. So that will come down. Now, having said that, I get corrections from Castle Group every month, and so even though these are expenses through March, I will probably get February and March corrections yet on some of these, so those numbers could change on any of these numbers.
What would irrigation electric be, running the pumps?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So we don't have it up above then, it's all taken care of down below. There's no comparable irrigation electric.
For the shared expenses, I think the only irrigation, the only thing we have is the fountains up there.
The entire median portion, going from the fountains at Colonial and Tree Line, all the way to the entrance of Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
So where are we charging
That's a
that
lot
to?
of
There's nothing,
irrigation.
there's nothing in the shared expenses for irrigation, never has been.
Have to look into that in that case.
Yeah.
Okay, and I look at the invoices and see where we're irrigating.
Yeah.
So I just take a quick look and it'll say, you know, a neighborhood, or it'll say a location. So yeah, that is something we need to look at.
Chris, it might be a good idea if you came up to the
Yeah.
podium, the minute
Okay.
taker at least, can hear you a little more clearly.
Okay, access control, secured house, that's a contract, so I'm just waiting for Scott to see if it's gonna increase any this year. The gatehouse repairs, we're pretty close to budget on that, just very slightly over. Yeah, gatehouse repairs and maintenance, yeah, we're just over a little bit. Supplies and passes, we're over budget on that, but I left it as last year because this is something else Scott and I talked about. You know how you have to pay for anything over 3 passes coming in and renters have to pay? Well, all the income from that is going to the master, but yet we've been paying for the
Supplies.
Stationary
decals.
supplies and all that.
We've been paying for the
Yeah, I've asked
decals.
about that several times.
I know,
Yeah.
and so I told Scott that he needs to take that out of our budget and needs to go into the master budget, because you need to match those 2 items together.
Yep.
So I'll remind him and I talked about it about 3 months ago, so
Mhm.
I'll remind him about that.
So,
again.
so are you gonna move the income into our budget, or move
No.
the whole thing over?
No,
over
he,
there.
Oh,
Scott
over
actually
there.
said it needs to stay there because he said, and you might know more about this, it's a taxable event for them.
That's my understanding. I don't know where it, was in the GSCDD budget in the first place, but essentially the plan is to move all of that as a master expense.
Okay,
Okay.
but Scott told me that that's a taxable item for the Master Association. So they need that expense to offset that income, so that they're not paying taxes on the gross amount of that income. So it should all go to them. Let's see, what else do we have?
Excuse me, Nancy, but how does that work with the fact that everything else related to the gatehouse stays in the CDD budget?
Yeah,
I would honestly need Scott to advise on that.
I mean,
seems kind of strange.
it seems strange it
It
doesn't come
does.
back the
Yeah.
other way.
It does, but it's my understanding it was a Master Association decision to charge for those passes?
No, it was not.
Not?
Not.
Okay,
No.
so whose decision was it to do that?
It was done,
It's not here.
it was done here when we set up the whole
Okay,
system
okay.
of switching to. the
And we
new-
decided how many they could get a year before they
Right.
had to pay, yeah.
It was
Okay.
all done here.
Okay, that's interesting. Scott's understanding was the other way around, but he
No.
wasn't here.
Yeah,
He wasn't here for
Bob
that.
and I were.
Yeah.
So, well, wherever they end up, they need to be matched.
Mhm.
And I would think the income from them probably slightly might exceed the expense of them. So even if we put it back in, we should have income to offset that.
Mhm.
But they need to go to the same place, either way. So, Sidewalk and road repairs, this is another one that Scott said he expects there to be about $30,000 in expenses this year for that. Street lighting and electric is quite a bit lower than last year, and that, once again, could be a result of the LED lights, because they're less expensive to operate.
And Nancy, if I may, I do have one relevant comment on that. As I understand, Scott has been in touch with FPL, and they are right now working on a conversion of all of the FPL lights throughout the neighborhoods, moving those to LED as well.
Okay.
So that's something that I understand is in process. I don't have any specific timelines for that, but it's something that's in the pipeline.
Okay, and if that happens, then we can reduce that budget slightly too, like based on the savings.
I would anticipate it.
When we switched ours over, it kind of offset the increase that we were expecting from FPL, kind of offset the savings of the lights, so we just kept it at about the prior year. Neighborhood monuments, I did actual plus 3% there also. And we're a little low, we're a little below last, our budget for that. Irrigation repairs.
Nancy, did you talk about the hosting, the Boyd?
I didn't. We have 5,500 in that every year, and I don't know where, I never see invoices for that, so I don't know.
So we come out with no expenses?
Well, I apologize, what was the topic?
The VoIP hosting?
522.
We had decided another budget cycle ago back or whatever to include that in the Securitas contract, so it was all supposed to come together.
Okay, so we should be able to take that right out of the budget then,
If it is in the.
if it's in the contract.
Yeah.
But I never see expenses for it, ever.
You don't, okay, well, then you ought to check with Scott as to.
Okay. All right, so I'll put a little question mark there. I didn't even make a comment there because I wasn't sure. So irrigation repairs and maintenance, they are above budget for this part of the budget, so that's another one we were gonna talk about, see if some of them belonged up above. Plant replacements, we're below budget, but I left it the same as last year until I hear from Scott that he expects it to be different. Same with tree and sod, I left it the same as last year because we haven't done hardly anything there. Street lighting repairs and maintenance down here are above budget, and I don't know why that would be, but we're considerably above budget. The golf cart is leased contract. Boardwalk maintenance repair, that's another one for Scott that he expects to be about 12,000 this
Who
upcoming
do we
year.
lease the golf cart from? The golf course?
No, it's not a golf cart, it's those two little, it says leased golf cart here, but it's really those two little utility trucks.
It's, well, no, it's actually, it's one utility cart that our maintenance guy Wesley utilizes. If you see him driving around the community, it's just that one
And
item.
we split it between the, we split the bill equally between the shared expenses and the non-shared.
Okay.
I just assumed it was two carts.
Yeah, no, just one.
Just one, okay. Let's see, where are we, boardwalk maintenance and repairs, that was per Scott that he expected that to be 12,000 this upcoming year.
And I believe he sent us a separate email on that subject.
He
Yes.
did, and in
Yes.
it he talked about not allowing golf carts in there
Yes.
anymore,
Yeah.
because they're doing a lot of the damage
Mhm.
to the boardwalk.
Well, that's-
Well, that was just a suggestion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we had talked about that before, that the original documents didn't allow golf carts in there anyway. We talked about that.
We
in
got
the-
20 years of history that we do allow.
Yeah, we said the sales.
They even
the
put a
sales
little
team
flag up
did
there.
I know.
We
Let people know there's golf
discussed,
carts
we
on there.
discussed this in the SSWG, and it's a pretty fraught issue.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
There,
use it.
to say the very least.
Yeah.
I mean, there are strong feelings on both sides.
Absolutely. You thought the golf cart land was a problem.
Huh?
Bicycle golf cart, this is
Yeah,
another one of
this
those.
would be a
The
a
question
doozy.
really, the
Huh?
question really back to Scott, is there any way that we can strengthen that boardwalk?
Yeah, so I can tell you that's already on the radar insofar when we're talking about, the various repairs and such that are going to be done. Scott already plans on speaking with those contractors to see, what can be done to minimize the stress on the boardwalk.
Allowing golf carts in
And other handicap type of vehicles.
Yeah.
Three-wheelers.
Yep.
It's really bad in there right now.
Oh, I know.
It's been on all of them. I mean, they've been neglected
Yeah,
a lot of
but,
years.
but the bridges are bad, but the boardwalk is really bad right now. I mean, I stepped on one board and the other end came up that high. So there's a lot of repairs that need to be done in there. And they are gonna have some repairs done by the contractor.
That's my understanding, yes.
The bridge contractor.
Yeah, because right now, it's just, you guys are just going out and having
We
boards
have,
nailed
we have the
down.
maintenance guy coming out regularly and addressing any concerns noted or reported.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's probably all for a later date, but one thing, I'd like to just plant this seed, maybe golf carts, yes or no, but that little section that goes off to the viewing area, that might be something to consider not having golf carts on, because people could at least get back and park.
Nope, we're spending a lot of time and money to get that area back to the viewing area that it was when we first moved
Yeah,
here.
well, but Joe's point is.
And people were gonna wanna be back there at night, including those people that can't get there.
But you know what? When you're back there in a golf cart, if there's another one coming the other direction, it's not.
That's why they have the mailbox sign.
Yeah.
When you
I know.
go back, you drop the sign, and nobody goes back till it comes out. It's a good common sense approach, it's worked 14 years.
It's
Keep on
work,
going.
but I don't think they should be back there.
I understand.
I never take a golf
And
cart.
there's,
Next-
there's
next
next to be
subject.
just as many people that feel it should.
But I
It's a
can
shorter
see,
walk.
I can see,
Subject.
yeah, I can see
Yeah,
a
let's
compromise.
go on.
Let's not deal with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we can't fix that right now.
Just-
Okay. All right, traffic signage and repairs. That one I did actual plus 3%, we're well under budget on that this year.
But we should be running out of places to put traffic signs.
Well,
I would
but-
hope.
but
Except
it's repairs and
that,
maintenance.
except that, no, that's not so, and as a matter of fact, you know, we may come
I
back to
take back my
you-
statement.
We may come
Moving
back
right
to you
along.
because there are things that we're looking at doing. They may not be specifically signage, but
They come under there.
they would come under that rubric.
I
mean,
apologize.
It's
You'll be right along.
safety stuff.
Okay, ant control, this is another one for Scott, he expects it to go up to 10,003 because now we've got a Prado area to include as where we're gonna be doing ant control. There's a lot of, ant hills, if you walk down, Prado Boulevard right now, and there's big ant hills all over the place. Pressure cleaning is another one that we're not showing any expenses here yet, and have we not done pressure cleaning?
We actually have done one round of pressure cleaning
Okay.
thus far.
Okay.
Do I understand that it's
Oh.
not appearing on the regular pressure cleaning line?
It's appearing on the shared expenses.
What did you clean?
I can tell you, we did all of the monuments to the communities, curbing, all of Pelican Preserve Boulevard down Cypress Grove, and our entrance areas by Pelican Preserve Boulevard and Tree Line and Colonial and Tree Line.
That has to
So
be a
that
hell of a
should be
lot more
split.
Yeah.
than 200,
It's-
$981.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think when we put the pressure cleaning, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was specifically for the boardwalk. And we were gonna do it every other year. It's like, 30,000 to do it, so we put 14 a year in it. Does that ring any bells for you?
No,
Nancy?
No, that was not for just the boardwalk.
Okay, where's the boardwalk pressure cleaning?
I think,
Under boardwalk maintenance.
I think that's under boardwalk repairs and maintenance.
9,000 doesn't cover that
no,
cleaning.
I agree with Bob, we were doing it alternate years.
Yeah, I.
We were, but we can't do a budget item alternate years and do half and half. We just
Mhm.
can't do that, because we're on an annual, the type of
But
accounting.
doesn't it just
we do-
carry over?
No, it doesn't. It does not. So if you wanna put it in capital, then you could put the extra money in capital
But it's
improvements.
not really capital.
Oh, I don't care where it goes, I was
Yeah.
just relating what my understanding of that money
No,
was.
You can't,
Okay.
you can't split it in half.
And we shouldn't be
Half and
pressure
half.
cleaning anyway, if we're gonna replace it next year.
Yeah.
We think we're all pretty
Well,
much
I don't know, are we
today.
replacing the boardwalk next year?
Well, I don't know.
I don't
That's
think so.
ultimately gonna
As
be.
soon as the bridges are done,
something
that's
to
the
this
next
and
item.
That is, well.
It is,
well,
but-
we
The
talked
bridge is
about
gonna
that.
get done over the summer,
Yeah,
so it'll be not this budget cycle, but the next one.
Next one.
well, that's what
This
we're
is-
working on.
No,
This is the next
This
budget
is the
cycle.
next budget cycle.
Okay.
This is starting in October. So, anyway, we've got a lot of pressure cleaning up in the shared expenses and then down here, so that's another one that Scott will have to look at and see if they're being charged to the wrong account. Some of them I can tell, and I questioned Scott directly about some things, whether they're in the right one, but sometimes they're just, if it just says pressure cleaning I can only rely on what account they charge it to, I can't
Yeah.
tell where it's coming from. So,
Well, we did the pressure cleaning of the monuments, and we certainly did the streets, so I recognize it was done by somebody.
yeah.
Sure.
But I just didn't think
Probably
that this was the
be
line
split
item.
differently.
Yeah. Well, at one point in time, Jason asked to take that pressure cleaning and put it used to be combined in somewhere else, and about 3 years ago, Jason asked to have it put on a separate line, and he set up an
Yeah,
account.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so, we'll just have to make sure these are being split right.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Scott and I have already reached out to Paul Frederick. He's with Premier Pressure Cleaning that we've used in the community for some years. We have requested a meeting to sit down with him and go over all of the pressure cleaning items of the community. So we should be able to have some specific numbers and address any
For
concerns.
next year's budget.
Yes.
Okay, then the only other thing I have a question on here is, if you look at the very line, bottom I wrote capital projects and it says painting underneath. Scott told me that this upcoming year, the wall and tree line, the 2 bridges that go over the flowway, the guard shack, and then the pergolas all need to be painted. And he's estimating about $45,000 for that, including any repairs. I think he said the painting was gonna be about 25, and so he's estimating, you always find boards and things that need to be repaired. So I put it down there because it's not part of our normal budget, and it's really a capital item, a capital repair. I don't know if we wanna start taking money out of our capital account or not. At some point in time, we have to. start
That's
doing
what
that.
it's for.
So I listed that separately as a capital project, and we'll have to decide if
If
it's
it's
gonna go
something
in the
that's gonna be
budget.
done every 3 to 5 years or every 10 years, that's a great place for
Yeah.
it. So we can accumulate the money.
Yeah.
And it's there when you need it.
Apropos that, Ron, I was thinking today, we know that we didn't put anything in for the path around the preserve.
Right.
Either for the bridges or for the boardwalk in the capital reserve. What I'm wondering is, could we do a delta capital study? In other words, have Jack or whoever could do it, come in and add that expense to the capital, to the reserve budget, the capital budget, so that we, rather than, we have the 330 that we're doing now.
Sure.
Maybe we'd have to make it 350 or 360, but then we'd start to cover the, because this time around, if we want to do something on the boardwalk, we're probably going to end up taking it out of
Capital.
well, out of the unassigned reserves. But it seems to me we ought to be ready for the
Next time.
for the
Next
next
cycle,
time.
whatever that
Next-
is.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, well, then.
Has it been 50?
Right.
I guess it's been
Oh, sure. It's
forever.
been-
Okay.
It's been 15
It's
plus.
been 15 plus years. So maybe we ought to be providing in the capital reserves for that. And it would seem to me it would be simple enough to just do
Yeah,
a study of that particular thing
Yeah.
and just add it.
Well, and yeah, but maybe the next time we have to do it, they might have to do the foundation. We're getting awful cheap. It's not cheap, but I mean,
Yeah.
this is cheap compared to what it could cost us.
Mhm.
But the Trek board may have a much longer life than wood.
Sure.
A lot of variables there, so we need somebody to tell us, we don't know, I agree, sure.
Well,
Is that something you could
Yeah, let me
take on and?
take on there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can get it all done. Well, we can put a number into this coming budget.
Right.
It may not be the number, or we can
Right.
put a number in, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Based on what we already know, the bridge.
Yeah. And
Work
put these
that's being
items
done
on the
anyway.
capital
We
as
know
right.
what that number is.
And we have a number for the
Boardwalk.
a boardwalk. We have a preliminary number at least for the
Yeah,
boardwalk.
so we could take
So we know
those
what that
numbers.
is, and take that number and divide by 15 or 20,
Yeah, right,
whatever
just-
we
just
think
to
it
throw a
is,
number in
and then
there.
just throw a number in.
Yeah, sure.
and we need to do the same with the bridges too.
That's
That's what we're talking
Same with
about.
bridges.
Absolutely,
Well,
both.
Yeah.
I thought you were just talking the boardwalk.
But
No,
no, the whole-
the bridges
And we have
and-
numbers for all of that.
Do all
So
of
it.
we can
We
do
have
a
it, we have numbers for that.
quick estimate
Yeah,
that we can
Well-
up the reserve for.
yeah.
We have 3.5 million in unassigned now, but I don't know how much of that goes to
Well,
these ponds.
we've had this discussion every year, 2 or 3 times about that really isn't
It's not all of it.
unassigned,
Some of
really.
it, some of it
It's
is,
just
but
that's
not
where
all
the
of it.
budget shows it.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of
Well-
it is ponds money,
and I don't know how much is ponds
so,
money.
well, we had that number, we were
It's
given.
about
that number.
1.2 million is about it.
Yeah.
So that would still leave us.
Still got a lot.
Still
Still
leaves us
quite a
couple
bit,
million.
but we may, if we decide to do the boardwalk, we may suck.
Tap into that, yep.
A lot of that, because that
We
was,
have to
that
tap
was,
into a lot of
that
it.
was $300,000 or $400,000,
Yeah.
it seems to me to be.
It was.
Yeah.
Should be well
Should
needed.
we talk
Well
about this?
needed.
Oh, yes, yes.
Should we talk about this reclaimed water system?
Well, that's on the budget.
Hold on, I mean,
Well, you mean as far as the budget?
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Will we be into that, Joe, next year?
We just finished a meeting with the South Florida